Okay, welcome back. Mailtime Podcast, episode 12. We got Alon Tirer here. He is the CEO of our Israel Emergency Aid Organization, front residence, and chairman of Growing as Winners. We first came to know each other because of post-October 7th stuff, trying to help with lack of equipment. So, Alon, what does your biography mean?
So first of all, thank you for having me. Basically, pre-war, I wasn't involved in any of this sort of efforts. I was doing real estate. And after October 7th, I had the realization, after I saw people like you mainly getting so much work done, that we need, to be involved on the highest level possible. October 8th evening, I started Israel Emergency Aid. We did a very extensive work. We did a very extensive few months of work around the equipment efforts, tactical equipment, like you've been doing up to today. And Growing as Winners is the second initiative that we started a few months into the war, after seeing that so many people are suffering from trauma, which is another area that the country is not providing the necessary care. So we went in and we've built a PTSD rehabilitation center in Tel Aviv. We're just opening a second one, but that's basically what we do.
Who's paying for it?
Private donors, like always. Israel.
Okay, so one of the things when we first met, we were discussing this about whether it's the state's going to take care of something, or whether it's just private donors. So in your case, is it a public-private partnership at all, or it's mostly, as the joke would be, private-private partnership?
It's a private partnership. Unfortunately, up to this day, none of my initiatives have received a single cent from any public entity, related to the Israeli government. We did get them from federations in the States, which are some sort of a public entity, but definitely not Israeli.
No, but of course, if that's not that. The setup is such that federations and foreign contributions are the ones that.
So those were the ones that took care of and financed my efforts. We've been we've been doing a bit of work with the MOD in the last few months regarding the PTSD center. We received, I'm not going to say the amount because it's funny, but we're going to receive a few thousand shekels pretty much. It's not something serious. But no, like you and I both know, since October 7th, the Jewish population, not only the Israeli population, had to step in and finance from military equipment to rehabilitation, or pretty much everything. Because like me and if it wasn't for private donors doing those things, it wouldn't have happened.
So you're sitting with the bigwigs. I saw the other day at an event you had for the Civil Squads of Israel with Naftali Bennett, former prime minister, and you're on television and you're in the network of people that at least see themselves as important or are important in Israel. What do they say about these issues and the fact that it's been donations that have been required for sustaining IDF and Kito Konanut and things like that? And before you answer it, I just want to clarify one of the things that you and I not disagree, just different approach. We've been focused on soldiers in the IDF, and the majority of your stuff's been Kito Konanut, being a civil organization, so it's a little bit less bureaucratic, right? I think it's fair to say.
So I'll answer it in two bullets. I'll say that in the first few months we were focused just around the IDF, but I felt like we were getting to the point where, I'm going to say your least favorite phrase, but we got to the point where, for me, donor fatigue was at the point where people were like, wait, this is the army. Why isn't the country taking care of things? And the question that I couldn't get ahead of was the army saying, we don't need anything. And at the end of the day, if you look at private people like me and you, who are trying to say, look, the IDF has a major issue around military equipment, but then the IDF spokesperson goes and says, no, it's not an issue. So, we had a big challenge there. And then if you look at the area of officials, anywhere I think you have responsibility, anywhere from government to press, or at the end of the day, if you're a persona that people listen to, where the state of war is very important to affect, and talk about the issues. I think people understand that the issue, two sides. One side is the people who are out of the game and not currently sitting in office, that understand that the way of moving things in Israel is so complicated that they just find themselves, helping via non-for-profits and awareness and trying to get things done. And unfortunately, what has happened, if you look at people who are actually sitting in office, is that, no one likes to fix this problem that he has caused. And people have not gotten to the point where they're willing to say, yes, there are issues. We are responsible for them. Let's fix them. They rather, look at other narratives and talk about other issues. But at the end of the day, we haven't seen any sense of accountability for the lack of equipment in the IDF since the beginning of the war by anyone. And this goes to all layers of managing this country. Because at the end of the day, you have an officer who's alam. I know her personally. I'm not going to say her name. Who's in charge of collecting the lacks of data in the IDF. And if she goes to the head of the IDF, to Herzi, and says there is no issue, and he goes to the MOD and says there is no issue, it's levels of negligence that you see from bottom up. And unfortunately, they're so fixated on them that you don't see anyone really picking up the torch and saying there is a problem. Because at the end of the day, all that is needed is one brave person in a high position. You have people like the Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, could solve this issue within days. If Herzi would have wanted to say there is a lack of equipment, we're not talking about something that from a money standpoint is critical to the country. We're not talking about tens of billions of dollars. We're looking at an issue that could be solved. But at the end of the day, no one's everyone are trying to cover for themselves, and no one has the courage of saying, you know what, even if it's not the best political move that I can make internally for my organization as an IDF persona or as a politician. And you see people just, they prefer staying in their seat than actually getting things done, which is a shame.
And it's also hard because with the enemies of Israel that are prolific and acting nonstop, for example, the ICC, social media wants to talk about the ICC ruling. They want to talk about the implications for Gallant and for Bibi and for Israelis traveling abroad, which are all fine topics. But it takes away from life and death issues that the soldiers are facing because we'd prefer to talk about our collective enemies.
I agree.
And that also happens on the Federation level and in other nonprofits because there are real issues, don't get me wrong. It's much easier to fight anti-Semitism from a fundraising perspective than to go into the nitty-gritty details of bureaucracy and exposing something that's been... I can't describe it any other way than a very cancerous bureaucracy that needs to be fixed and cured.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like we all saw, as you know, one of the things that I appreciate about you most is that you keep on attacking that subject and you will keep on doing it until it is fixed. And this is not the best PR move you can make. And this is not the best, political game you can, think.
Yeah, but again, I didn't get into this for politics. I didn't get into it for
Exactly,
anything
but
else,
most
right?
people who are people who have the power of solving these issues are not in it for the same reasons that people like me and you are in it. They're, they're part of a bigger game, and they're okay with, looking at some things and looking away. And I think if we look at it from the perspective that me and you are looking at it, that it's just, we're Zionists, we love our troops, we want them safe. Not talking about this is okay. It's not acceptable.
It's crazy because, and I pointed this out on social media over the weekend, but Yoav Gallant, when he was Minister of Defense, he went to Chicago to fundraise for FIDF in August of 2023, and he was very proud of the fact that they got a lot of money for college scholarships. At the same time, you have testimony that was given to the Civilian Commission of Inquiry, which was set up by individuals.
Yeah, I gave a testament.
Yeah, right, and we'll get to that in a second. They said that people that were in charge of the balloons and drones on the Gaza border were going on AliExpress to buy equipment because they couldn't get equipment to fix their things there. They were saying that the 3 out of the 6 cameras weren't working the morning of October 7th. Now, obviously, you still need assistance for soldiers after they've served, and that's not a bad thing. But it's just the priority and the fact that you'd have people going on AliExpress when the whole point of the new border fence was that it would require fewer soldiers and therefore you'd have better technology. And if you can't even get the equipment to fix the technology because you have a bureaucratic holdup and people, for all intents and purposes, don't care, it's just interesting that that's where the mind space was of the leadership. You have Aviv Kochavi when he was Ramakal speaking at FIDF. You have Benny Gantz doing all of these people. And the actual basic and fundamental things were seemingly ignored. And it's hard to understand how this isn't just called out more publicly. And like you said, there's political interest and other things like that. I personally don't care about that, which is perhaps why I do it. But for me, I just see it as just the right way to call it out, because at the end of the day, if we don't deal with it, we're just kicking the can down the road.
Look,
And yeah,
at the end of the day, I agree with you on everything you say, but my approach is a bit different, and I look at it. I think that where the place we are at today in terms of solving the issue has gotten to the point where it's so bad that it could only be solved by people like you who actually go out there. They don't care about what the system says; they just do it. And I think after, the fog of war will clear down, the people of Israel will hold these people accountable for not providing the proper equipment, for not going out of their way and, admitting to the fact that, yes, there is an issue and let's deal with it. I think that people, and, maybe it's because I'm very deeply involved into the whole subject of equipment, but I think if you look at people in Israel, if you look at the reservists, if you look at the political system is going to be very affected by the fact that they were not taken care of on the simplest level.
right. And people know that. Like, there's a member of Knesset who I've helped his brother out with hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. I won't say the name, but
I'm not surprised.
it's unspeakable that you have someone who's in the Knesset and they know that I'm helping their brother with basic equipment.
Yeah.
I have two areas I want to address with you. One, when we talked about the civilian commission of inquiry, what was your experience like there, and what did you testify more or less?
So, it was a good experience. I mean, the people were, it was very, I mean, I could feel that they were people who were just trying to figure out what has happened, and they're trying to provide with the state with enough testimonials that will actually make them go out of their way, start understanding what's been going on, and starting to deal with issues because, it's a whole political thing in Israel, and it's said that it's a political thing, but it's almost been 14 months post October 7th, and people were never held accountable. I mean, we've never stopped to the point of saying, okay, what has happened? Where are the issues? Let's fix them. And I think at the end of the day, this was the first goal of this committee.
The example that I give is it's as if a doctor committed malpractice and a patient died on the table, and then they say, okay, we have to investigate this, and the doctor replies, well, I have 7 more surgeries this week, so my team's going to look at it after 7 more surgeries. But
Exactly.
I'm sorry about the first guy. And
Exactly.
it doesn't explain. It doesn't make anyone feel more comfortable.
I agree. And, my perspective was good and bad because on one end, they were very professional. We tried to get, we were talking about equipment on the most practical level. But it was bad because, at the end of the day, it's not a committee that has power. It's this move that is trying to get, the state to act. But at the end of the day, I would want to see people who actually have power. I would want to see people who in power doing exactly what they did, of trying to figure out what has happened and then solving it. Because at the end of the day, you and me know that if take me and you to a meeting with Israel Katz and Herzi and give us power to actually, move things, this will be solved in a week. We can show exactly where the issue is. But no one is sitting in this room and saying, okay, where is the issue? How do we solve it? It's
And
not
why do you think the media doesn't cover the inquiry all that much? I've been looking at the media. I have the report myself. I see what it says and how damning it
not
is.
enough. Not enough.
But I haven't seen anything. I've seen a few paragraphs here and there, but I haven't
So
seen.
media, again, this is like I mentioned before, one of the problems, and I encountered that problem when I was talking with 2 donors. One of the problem is, the end of the day, you have the IDF as a spokesperson that keeps on saying this is a non-issue, and at the end of the day, it's I don't know if you felt like this because but I have some points of this way. You kind of feel like a lunatic because you're the only person who's saying this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and everyone is saying this is okay. The media is not taking care of it, but then you understand that this is just it's ridiculous.
Yes, and I definitely have that, especially when we've been screaming about the unsafe ceramic plates that were issued to soldiers, and then a few days ago, the IDF actually put out a website for soldiers to check their equipment, and it says if you have IDF issued plates from 15 years or before, they're not safe. So for 14 months, they tell us that we are the crazy people running down the street screaming, and then they confirm that what we were saying was true. So yes, it definitely makes you feel a bit insane. I know we're a little bit short on time, so when you show up civilian squads of Israel, what does the situation look like in terms of equipment? And for Kitot Konut, what gaps are you filling?
So I want to start with saying that Kitot Konenut, especially in the Gaza envelope, were underprepared to, heading up to October 7th, to a point where it's almost a crime. I mean, I can give you the example of we started, it's a non-for-profit, it's called Civil Squads of Israel, and we started because my friend Nir is from Kibbutz Ufa. October 7th, one of his best friends, Ido Chubara, Zichrono Lebracha, with three other people, there were six people in the Kitat Konenut. They had four rifles, no vests, no helmets, no nothing. And they have literally stopped, the members of Kibbutz Ufa from getting butchered in their houses. But they have paid with their lives. Not all of them, but I think three of them died. And this was something you saw everywhere. Civil squads, no one even thought about them. Police took a lot of their weapons because the assessment that the police has made is that there is a much higher probability that that the guns will be stolen than they'll ever need to be used. So that was going into October 7th. And then, post October 7th, unfortunately what has happened in the Gaza envelope was so severe that, private donors were, okay, let's buy them the equipment. So it was easy. And then I think in the north, people understood that, we have another potential October 7th with Hezbollah on the borders. We have to get those civil squads prepared. And again, like we know, it's not the country's role. I mean, it is the country's role, but I mean, in Israel, post-October 7th, the country does not provide well enough for civil squads or for the IDF. And again, we had to go in and to buy everything. From vests, from helmets, from scopes to their weapons. I mean...
So what does Bennett say at an event the other day when you're sitting next to him? I mean, he was prime minister. He was defense minister, I believe, correct?
Yeah, Bennett was saying, I think Bennett was saying very good things. Bennett was really addressing the fact that civil squads are frontline. And they are, it's not nice to have, it's a must have. And that they should be, he was really
So
talking
why
about...
didn't he do anything about it when he was prime minister?
So, look, I'm not here. I don't know what he did or not did when he was prime minister.
Well, wait a sec. You do know what he didn't do because you're replacing the
I'm saying there is...
there.
First of all, we only had a year, and there is a very large scale of things that you need to issue. But I think what's important about people like Bennett, who are actually doing a service for civil squads, is that the headline that came out of that event was Bennett is saying that civil squads should be better prepared, better equipped, better trained, bigger. I mean, I think Bennett is one of the people who's really understanding what's been going on. I cannot blame him on what it's been happening.
That's not an entire blame. It's just saying that one of the challenges is that a lot of the people who were there are taking it seriously after the fact, and that's good. It's just hard leadership-wise to establish that trust, in my opinion, because, again, 1 year prime minister is obviously he's not responsible for everything. It's just I hope that leaders can really take it to the next level and be open about it.
If you look at it from a sense of even if you look at it from what he said that he also gave a testimony at the Fada, I think and this is the last time I'll talk politics, but I think leaders in Israel should really take an example from him at the point of understanding that there is an accountability and that things need to be fixed. I haven't seen a leader since the beginning of the war actually going out and saying yes, this needs to be addressed.
This is true. And I also think that having an open conversation about it would be good as well. I hope that he will speak openly about the military stuff. I know I saw the clip of about 6 months ago when he said that the state of Israel essentially collapsed and the services collapsed on October 7th and that the civilian state rose up and it was the startup nation, as he said. And that's true. And I think that highlighting the scope of it is extremely important so that people actually truly understand what everyone's been doing behind the scenes until this point. Because if you only understand 5% of it, then you don't really understand the issue. People would say, oh, I remember people needed socks and bras and underwear and treats in the first couple days, and people were giving water and food. Thank you for doing that. It's very important stuff. It's not nearly the most important stuff. That's about line item, 100.
I don't think people at the beginning, I think most people, when they hear the IDF spokesperson says that there is no lack of equipment, cannot even grasp the fact that people don't have equipment. I think one of the most basic things around this issue that people like me and you who've been saying it for 14 months and have been living it daily, of course they know it. But if you look at it like the average, not only Israeli, but the average
In
member
the
of the
diaspora, they see what Fagari says and they
they
say
would
he says
never
everything's
even
fine.
imagine. No one imagines that IDF soldiers don't have the proper helmets. I mean, I was in Golani, I was injured, so I'm not in Miluim, but I would never imagine, even when I was in Golani, that you'd be in war and you don't have the proper equipment. This is
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
obscene. It's crazy.
It boggles the mind, and also the perception that Israel's been putting out for so many years between the Mossad, Shin Bet, and the strength of the defense system, and it runs counter to that as well. So the first step is you have October 7th happening, and nobody can understand how in the world that happened, and then how do you not have equipment? And it's a double whammy that's really hard to comprehend. And with so many enemies, like I said before, people want to focus on jihadists and anti-Semitism on campus and anti-Semitism in the workplace and in communities, which are all important causes. And it's really hard to fathom that we would also have to expend energy, time, effort on gear for
I
soldiers.
think people need to understand that everything is important. Everything, from the diaspora to
No,
anti-Semitism.
flip-flops are not important.
No, even,
Not,
number 1,000.
no, I won't.
Yeah, you know what? Flip flops are not important. I'll have even
Okay.
and hooba boobas are not important as well.
Yes, no, you don't need gum.
Yeah, but I
Gum and
think
flip-flops are not important. I'll
no,
be okay if you want to get people a pillow. Okay.
yeah,
But,
even a blanket.
yeah.
What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, people need to understand that everything is important, but nothing is more important than making sure that the people who are risking their lives in order of having the Jewish entity stay the Jewish entity, having the state of Israel staying the state of the Jewish people. We have people who are risking their lives and dying every day in order to make this a reality. And they are number one. Their safety is number one. Everything comes after. And I think people are on the same page with me and you on that, but I don't think they're even exposed to the info of what's actually been going on. I don't think if you gave us 5 minutes of, every civilian of Israel has to listen to, where we show what equipment is needed, people would be, raging in the streets. I don't think they understand,
And
unfortunately.
that's why we have to keep talking about it. I appreciate you joining,
I
and
appreciate you
we'll have
having
to
me.
have a longer time to talk about more of the issues and continue to put light on it. And thanks for what you're
Definitely. And
doing.
for whoever is listening, donate to Unit
Oh well, you can donate
1171.
to Unit 11741, but if your persuasion is a little bit more on the civilian side,
No,
that alone is.
vests and helmets for troops are the most important things that could be done nowadays. And I want to say from my perspective that the work that you're doing is amazing, and thank you for not only for having me but for doing what you do.
Thanks, man.